et bienvenue à la finale de la 24e édition, le temps passe tellement vite, de la compétition de carrière internationale MBA de l'Université Concordia du John Molson School of Business. Welcome to this 24th year of the John Molson School of Business MBA International Case Competition. My name is Pierre Brunet. I'm a former faculty member and a member of the advisory board of the case competition. And the students have asked me to come here and give you a short synopsis of this case that they'll be presenting. The organizing students have asked me to do that. I've been briefing the judges. Briefing the judges. I do that all week. But by today, with this panel, I just sort of sit there for an hour and try and get their attention. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. This case, as I'm sure you know now, is LL Bean. It's an institution in the eastern United States. This is a billion-dollar company, privately held by the Bean and Gorman families. And it is, for the first time over the last 3 years, managed by a CEO named Chris McCormick, who is not a family member. Sales for this great company are about $1 billion, up to $1.1 billion and down to $1.08 billion, and have been since 1995. That's the issue. So it's been 8-9 years that sales have been pretty much stagnant. This company is a retailer of clothing, relatively sporty apparel, sports apparel, sporting goods, a little bit of furniture, a few retail stores, and a lot of catalog business. 85% of LL Bean's sales are conducted through its many catalogs that it mails out to people every year. 1% is done over the internet, and 14% is done in its stores. It has one or two major stores along the east coast of the United States, retail outlets. It has factory outlets along the east coast and along the west coast, and it has 9 stores in Japan. The 9 stores in Japan began well with sales and with profitability, but when the Asian crisis hit, things turned around, and it has not picked up since then. The issue that the judges are looking for, well, there's more than one. There are a couple of issues. One of the issues is, to whom are these participants, these students, presenting? They can present to Chris McCormick, who is the CEO of the company. They could be Chris McCormick presenting to Leon Gorman, who's the former president and the family representative in the company. They could also be presenting to the 3 top people, Leon Gorman, Chris McCormick, and Mark Fassel, I think is named, the CFO of the company. So one of the things that judges look for is how these students present themselves, how they position themselves to make the presentation. Mr. McCormick, in the case, has stated that he'd like this company to grow. He wants to grow the sales and grow the profitability. By the way, it's tightly held family business, so we don't know the profitability of the business. There's not a lot of numbers in here. He wants to grow it. So the students may come to whoever they're presenting to and say, here's a growth plan. They may come and say, stay where you are right now. It's nice and comfortable, and you're not growing, but you're not losing money, and you're doing fine. So they're looking for a growth plan from these students, who are either consultants or internal people. The growth plan could take an international flavor. One of the areas that seems appropriate for growth would be Korea, which is a very good market, which some people in the West see as fairly similar to Japan. It's not, by the way, but they see it as fairly similar to Japan. But Japan hasn't worked all that well. Another option is domestic growth. These retail stores and LL Bean's products are sold along the east coast of the United States in stores. Catalogs go all over the place. But there's a feeling that there's still lots of growth possibility in the United States. And so those are options for how you grow. Once you choose one of those, especially if you have a high growth, high cost business, then how you finance it is another issue that the judges expect to see the students handle. They can handle it in detail, but this company has never gone public. There's never been an IPO. It's never gone outside for money. It's always been cash flow that has funded the growth. And so there have been some layoffs in the last few years, which is an indication that cash flow is probably not what it should be. So if you're going to grow, where are you going to get the money? That's another issue. Some subsidiary issues would include the distribution system. How do you distribute your products? Do you want your own stores, or would you do it through other places like The Gap or Abercrombie & Fitch, which is a competitor, or Bloomingdale's or Neiman Marcus? Would you want to let go of some of that control over your products? So there are a number of issues like that that cascade from the type of growth strategy that the students will present. The more depth you see in a student presentation based on what their strategy is, the better the presentation. Right? And to remind you, there will be a 25-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute question period, then a switch into teams. The same thing will happen, another switch into teams, and it will happen again. So that's going to happen 3 times. And I'm also asked to remind you that there is simultaneous translation. If you're interested in hearing this in French, there are there's translation equipment available, and these nice young ladies over here in this booth, hi, nice ladies in the booth, are translating as we speak. All right, so I hope you enjoy this. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of this competition. That is a wonderful way to spend a week. Tiring, but great. There's no losers in this. Remember, there are 3 winners here. Just some will win a little bit more than others. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. Hope you enjoy the students' efforts, and we'll see you at the party tonight. Thank you. Just been reminded to ask you, everyone, please turn off your cellular phones. We had this train that goes by at the break, and we pick you up. Okay, now we wait for the students. We're finishing right now, so it might be a minute. The organization is 3 hours, you know, very precisely, and I think it's right now that we're finishing the first preparation, so it might be a minute or 2 before they come in here. Wilfred Laurier, St. Mary's, and Calgary. Do you have enough space? Quite. What do you think?
Welcome to the finals of the 2005 John Molson MBA International Case Competition. Congratulations to the Wilfred Laurier University for being part of the finals. My name is Jose, and I'll have the pleasure of being your judge coordinator for the afternoon. I will appreciate it if the judges could stand up and introduce themselves, both to the public and to the team.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Arvind Joshi. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at St. Mary's Hospital Center here in Montreal.
And I'm Mackie Vatichino, Chief Executive Officer of Soyami Foods.
My name is Norman Rash-Cowan. I'm Senior Vice President and Director of Standard Life Investments.
Russell Hiscock. I manage the equity program at the CN Rail Pension Fund.
Good afternoon. My name is François Giroux. I'm the President of Groupe Lacasse. We're an office furniture manufacturer and a unit of Hayworth Incorporated.
I would like to remind the Wilfred Laurier University that you have 25 minutes to deliver your presentation. I will show you a 5-minute and a 1-minute warning. As per conversation, I would appreciate if you could acknowledge that you have seen warnings. And then the judges will have 15 minutes to present your questions, and the team of the Wilfred Laurier University to answer the questions. Again, I will appreciate if the audience could make sure that the cell phones and pagers are turned off or in silence mode. Bienvenue à l'édition 2005 de la compétition internationale d'études de cas de l'école de gestion John Molson. Mes félicitations à l'équipe de l'Université de Wilfred Laurier pour être parmi les finalistes de cette compétition. Je suis José, je vais avoir le plaisir d'être votre coordonnateur pour l'après-midi. J'aimerais rappeler à l'Université de Wilfred Laurier que vous allez avoir 25 minutes pour présenter votre cas. Je vais vous montrer des avertissements de 5 minutes et de 1 minute. Selon notre conversation, j'apprécierais si vous pouvez confirmer que vous avez vu les avertissements. Après, les juges auront 15 minutes pour présenter les questions. Et pour répondre, je vais montrer au juge un avertissement de 1 minute. J'apprécierais si l'auditoire peut s'assurer que les cellulaires et les téléavertisseurs sont en mode silencieux. Good luck, bonne chance. Please begin your presentation.
In a quickly changing retail environment, what will it take for LL Bean to create and maintain a competitive advantage that will ensure long-term success and, more importantly, future sustainability? Good afternoon, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Fazel, and Chairman and members of the board of LL Bean. My name is Marina Garabedian, and it is a pleasure to be with you here today to talk to you about our strategy for LL Bean's future success. And we call it competitive advantage, the power of adaptability. Here to help me today with this endeavor are my colleagues, Trevor Timbeck, Mike Connor, and Andy Dabadine. So let us begin by looking at today's agenda. We're going to start first by identifying the problem that you have asked us to address. We will follow up with our solution to that, as well as take a look at LL Bean today. More importantly, we need to look at this changing environment in the retail industry, and we need to see its impact on LL Bean now and into the future to determine the sustainability of LL Bean in terms of its goals. From there, we will help to propose some alternatives in terms of the direction that LL Bean could move into and provide you with our ultimate recommendation. But of course, no plan is complete if we can't put that plan into action. So we will provide you with a set of implementation guidelines as well as key success metrics to ensure we've achieved the goals that we set out to do for you, LL Bean. So let us first begin by addressing the problem that you asked us to look at. Really, you said, how LL Bean should improve speed and delivery on their internet channel, expand into the U.S. retail channels, and ultimately increase your global presence. But we believe that the root of the problem is much deeper than that. What we see is how to truly differentiate LL Bean to achieve efficiency, growth, and ultimately long-term success. And our solution to you is that we focus on improving LL Bean's ability to adapt and change quickly to create a competitive advantage and allow for the sustainable global expansion which you are asking us about. But first, let's look at LL Bean today. Financially, you have been very, very successful. You have been making money, and your organization as a whole is strong. But within a changing environment where you need to adapt and change in order to meet the needs of this industry, we need to ensure that tomorrow is not negative from a financial perspective and an organizational perspective. Why do we say that? Because organizationally we know that you've had to lay off a lot of people. And if we need to change and increase our efficiency, we want to do it through other means other than laying off our staff in order to maintain not only our financial health, but ultimately our organizational health. And our strategy today, through the power of adaptability, will help to ensure that the future of LL Bean looks as positive into the future as it does today, both financially and organizationally. So let's take a look at the strengths within the company. We know that you have a great customer service capability. We know that you have a lot of community involvement. You have multi-channels through which your customers can purchase your quality products. And there's a predominant focus and source of revenues through your catalog sales. Moreover, you've built a reputation. And that reputation has come through really the internal workings of all of this. You have an extensive distribution network, and above all, you've been able to remain profitable. However, there are some challenges on the horizon, and we need to take note of these issues as we think about LL Bean into the future. So we know that there's a need to improve those margins. We know there's a need to improve efficiency, and there's a heavy reliance into the future on technology. Moreover, we know that there is a need to move in and become a player within the global market. However, what we're trying to say here really is that in a changing environment with so many challenges on the horizon, we need to leverage some of these strengths and be able to adapt in order to survive. So really, where does this adaptation come from? We think it starts with technology because that will allow us to provide and gain efficiency. Moreover, allowing us to improve on our profit margins, driving our attractiveness in order to gain some capital, and through that capital, being able to move and expand globally. This means that we need to be, again, highly adaptive. Each component on its own does not suffice independently. All of these have to work in a very synergistic manner through a cycle and provide that synergistic impact, ultimately giving us the adaptability within the cycle and within our ability to succeed. And what we're saying is this high adaptability through the connection of all of these factors is what's going to lead to our competitive advantage. But we can't stop there, can we? We need to look at what our stakeholders want. We know that this is a family business, and the family plays a critical role in terms of its needs and wants. We know that the family wants to see sustainability moving into the future. We know that you want to see LL Bean grow. We also have the employees that are involved in here. We know there is job security on the line for these employees, and we want to make sure that we can maintain that security not only now, but into the future. Moreover, there are our customers. They want great product selection. They want it at a value. And ultimately, they want to be able to gather and gain those products through multiple channels, internet, retail, and catalogs. So what this means is, in addressing what we're doing moving forward and adapting to this new environment, we can't forget to address and uphold the desires of our stakeholders. However, we can't just look internally. We need to look at the industry and its impact. And I will now turn it on to my colleague, Andy Dabadine, who will speak further to this detail for you.
Thank you, Marina. Well, to start with, why don't we look at the global markets and what's happening there, because that'll give us a trend as to where we go from here. So in the global markets, we've seen there's a lot of expansion globally as well as within the U.S. As Marina's talked about, we've got expansion everywhere. You've got to offer in order for them to do that. And that requires capital. As Marina's mentioned, you need capital. That's going to fund your investments. But to have capital means that's done by getting and attracting investors. To attract investors, you've got to have the performance that brings them to the table. And that is ultimately going to drive your profits. And to improve your profits, you can do so by aggressively growing on a global scale. But you've got to have your bottom line working for you to start that. Well, you're not the only one in the business. Who else is there and what are they doing? Well, you've got competitors. And your competitors, for instance, Land's End, they are basically catering to large-sized women, and they don't really cater to the ethnic crowd, which you're much more sensitive about. So that doesn't work for them. There's minimal variety in what they do, and there lacks a fashion trend. They're not the fashion trendsetters. They're not the ones with the best of clothes in that sense. You've also got Eddie Bauer. Great name, known a lot by people, but again, they do a lot of the same things. They're specialists in certain specialty stores. They've got the multi-channel presence, which means they've got multiple ways of accessing customers. Those are great things. They've begun to have a global presence, but again, they're not very sensitive to the ethnic groups, which again is something you're good at. And of course, there's Abercrombie and Finch, and they have very upscale, trendy, something the other two don't. So this is what sets them apart. They've also got a weak global presence, again, and they don't offer the ethnic communities the clothing lines that could attract them. So what do we say about this? You need to be highly adaptable to grow in the global economies. They may love the American clothes, but there's other clothes as well out there, and they want those clothes as well. Whoever's going to play in that market's got to be able to adapt to the different changing trends and the different demands of the different clientele. So who are the customers right now? Well, there's the baby boomers, and the baby boomers are tending to be very they like to look at the pricing on goods, they like the quality of the goods, but they also happen to start to be using the internet as well. So there is a channel there that you need to be conscious of. That trend has happened. The Gen Xers are using the internet as well, but they happen to have a different taste. They have changing styles as time goes by. They have unique products is more or less what attracts them. They don't want to be wearing what everybody else is wearing. They want to look different. They want to stand out. And they've also much more environmentally conscious. They want to be working with companies or buying from companies that are much more sensitive to the environment, something you're very good at. The Gen Yers, they are a little different. They want trendy clothing. They're not as loyal unless you can keep them there, and you've got to be able to keep them there by giving them what they want. They want custom clothing, something you're not quite there with yet. And they want affordability. But great news is they love using multi-channel sources. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but the multi-channel sources is something you are good at. And the mature markets, what do they want? Well, they're beginning to develop more trendy tastes. So they want changing tastes. They have changing tastes. They want people who offer it. But they are your loyal catalog shoppers, the ones who've been with you for all these years. So you're going to need to be aware of how they're changing if you want to keep them. So really what we're saying is you need to adapt to the changing market segments, both within the U.S. and globally. Because if you don't do it, you're going to lose market share. And a stitch in time today is going to save you down the line. What are these multi-channel shoppers that I've been talking about? You've told us a bit about it, but just so we are all clear, it's the people who are shopping through the catalog, the internet, and retail. They're doing it all. They happen to be 4 times more frequently shopping online than the typical online shopper. That's definitely somebody you want. They happen to be spending 50% more than the average customer. Again, you definitely want the person who's going to spend the money because that's driving your bottom line. And they visit the stores 70% more than the average customer. They also purchase 110% more from catalogs if they're multi-channel than the typical catalog customer. So your catalog customer is great, they're your core, but this is an avenue that you want to get in on. So your multi-channel customers are critical to your success. You really do want the shopaholics on your side. So technology. What's the technology that's been driving everything in the business? It's a clothing business. How is technology important here? Well, you've discovered that very early on. You've got excellent distribution channels. But there's more to it. There's the internet needs. You've already started on recognizing that it has to be easy to use, it has to be it has to be very speedy, and it has to be customized to suit your customers. And that is not a static thing. That keeps changing, and you've got to be able to change with those trends. But you've also be able to do it in a way that shows that you are different than your competitors. Because they've got websites too, so you need to be able to stand out by being fast and easy to use. You've also got retail needs for your stores. Well, you've mentioned the stores tend to look the same. You don't want to fall into the trap your competitors have. They all look the same. They all seem the same. What's the difference? Well, the in-store tracking allows you to track how many customers you have coming in and out, what they're buying, what they want, what they're looking for. Information that if you have the technology that can track that, it can help you plan for your future, plan for your orders, and plan what type of trends you're going to have in your store. You're also, with the Wi-Fi, same thing. It allows you to have a way to stand out, be different, and make the shops far more accessible to your staff and your customers. And the entertainment. Well, you've already started in on the arcades and everything else, but technology is a great source of entertainment as well. And if you're attracting those younger Gen Yers as well as the ones you're traditionally attracting, you're going to need to find technologies that bring them in the store. And as for manufacturing, you started on having increasingly efficient operations. You've got an excellent distribution center. But you need to be looking more and more at outsourcing and whether or not, if somebody else can do it better and cheaper, then you should be thinking about that. Yes, you should be conscious of your staff, but you're a growing business. So you need to be able to find all the cost efficiencies you can, and technology is bringing that. Customization is also something that technology can help you bring because, again, what people want and the way it works drives how you make your money. So you need to leverage technology to improve your efficiencies, which would ultimately drive your profitability and improve your ability to grow. So Marina's mentioned how we get to this competitive advantage. Well, what does really LL Bean offer at this stage? They've got a catalog, which they're excellent at. You guys are the best probably at that because you've got solid customers. 85 or 86% of your sales is from the catalogs. You've got great quality in your clothing. You've got the ethnic awareness that your competitors definitely don't have. You've got distribution channels, and you've got great products. But these are these can be copied. They may not have gotten on board with the ethnic, but they are pretty much there. They can do the catalog, they can do the quality, they can do the products, they can even get in on that distribution. So you need to have an intangible competitive advantage that they don't have. Something that's not easily copied, and that's being adaptable. Being able to read what your customers want, being in touch with your customers, using the technology to track the trends, using your store clerks to track the trends, using everything you can so that you're ahead of the curve and you're able to adapt. And by outsourcing, you also have the ability to adapt to those changes. So now Mike is going to tell you how we've decided where we go and how we go from here.
Thanks, Andy, and good afternoon. Before we actually started to develop options or alternatives and moving forward in your strategy, we had to develop 4 key decision criteria for evaluating our different alternatives and options and moving forward. So the first one we looked at is increase your profit margins. The second one we looked at increasing consumer response time. This is adapting to the changing consumer needs, especially within the Gen Y area, which is going to be moving up to become a major force within the retail industry. The next one we looked at is multi-channel integration. How can we properly integrate the catalog with the retail store and your internet presence in North America, Japan, Korea, and onward? And the last one we looked at is, are options going to give you a long-term sustainable growth opportunity? We don't want something that's just a short-term fix. So moving forward, I guess, well, we started off by you can continue an aggressive expansion campaign both within your catalogs, both on your retail storefront and your internet. We then looked at diversifying your product line and going into different fields. But then we looked at, well, why don't we adapt to the changing customer needs that are out there? Because your response time has been lagging over the past couple of years. So in going forward, we decided to adapt to the changing customer needs in moving forward. Now, adapting to changing customer needs, there's really two options. I can continue to leverage your existing technology, which is really great, having FedEx in-house within your distribution channel, being able to turn around products within 2 hours, that's fantastic. Or I can look at new technology and leveraging that within your supply chain and adapting to changing customer needs. So moving forward, we decided to invest in new technology so that we can further adapt to the changing customer needs and reduce the customer response time. So from there, we looked at, well, where do we really want to focus the energy on? You have 4 different channels right now, the catalog, the internet, the retail, or the multi-channel. And moving forward, we decided to primarily concentrate on the multi-channel. Your catalog's not growing. Your retail's not growing. The internet as itself won't be a viable option for sustainable long-term growth. So we decided to integrate all these 3 into a multi-channel option moving forward. From here, we decided, well, where are we going to really expand? Are we going to continue expanding in the existing markets that we play in within Japan or within North America? Or are we going to go into new markets such as Korea, Southeast Asia, or possibly Europe? And we decided that we're going to focus on long-term growth within new markets because of the is to focus on the multi-channel customers leveraging new technology to decrease response time to changing customer needs. Now, what does this really do for you? Well, it allows us to use technology to increase your efficiency. By increasing your efficiency, you'll drive up your profit margins. By driving up the profit margins, it'll increase your ability to generate capital. And by generating capital, you will have the ability to properly expand into future markets. So what are we going to look like 3 years from now? Well, customers from 3 years from now, we're going to really focus on the international. And over the next 3 years, we're going to have a 10% increase within the sales within your international sales. What does that really mean? Well, we're going to increase your orders by 6%, so you'll be fulfilling 15.4 million orders per year, and you'll have 50 stores worldwide within 3 years. You'll primarily be focusing on the Generation Y, the Gen X, and the baby boomers because these are the individuals and consumers that are focused on multi-channel customers. So financially, where does this lie? Well, you'll have a 6% increase over the next 3 years in sales. You'll come up to $1.3 billion. This 6% annual growth rate is double the 3% growth rate currently being experienced within North America. In order to do this, though, there are costs associated with it, and the upfront cost is $50 million within new technology to really realign your supply chain. Now I'd like to introduce Trevor so he can really tell you how we're going to put this plan into action over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So just to recap, what we've seen is LL Bean is a strong company with a lot of existing strengths, but needs to adapt to a changing environment. And we've outlined the actual capability of adaptability and changing quickly as something that you can build on to become your competitive advantage. And also another thing that you need to take advantage of is this multi-channel approach and focus on this cycle to build the competitive advantage and drive ultimately the expansion and sustainability. So we've outlined 4 implementation objectives to guide the implementation plan from a higher level strategic overview. The first is leveraging the technology on the internet and the retail side and to improve efficiency, which is the next implementation objective. This leverages the technology but also looks at outsourcing so that we can bring down our costs and be more competitive on a global scale with some of the outsourced overseas manufacturing. Looking to improve our adaptability, which is really building on the first 2 objectives and increasing our market-oriented awareness and really improving how fast and how quickly we can change to the adaptation to the environment, and then ultimately global expansion. Obviously, we can't afford to wait for global expansion, so all of these objectives are going on at the same time in a different sequence in terms of which are the priorities. The first implementation objective is really all around leveraging technology. Here we'd like to move more technology into the retail side in terms of in-store tracking tracking to determine how efficient we are and make sure that we're making the best use of our retail outlets. We want to monitor and evaluate that to make those improvements. We would like to look at the internet in terms of improving the site usability, the ability to one-click checkout, and using the internet feedback for demand forecasting to make sure that we have the inventory in place. Today, your ability to ship out in less than 2 hours or the 24-hour turnaround is excellent, and in terms of benchmarking, number one in the industry. But if it's not in stock, that's when you can have delays, and that's where some of the demand forecasting and also supply chain in terms of connecting into your suppliers to make sure that orders and you know what is coming in so you have it in stock. This would be over the next 2 years, and this, as Mike said, at the cost of $50 million. The next implementation objective would be improving efficiency. Here we want to leverage that technology to improve efficiency, but also a main point here would be outsourcing. We need to look at an overseas supply chain management expert. One of the examples, Lian Feng, who is a leader in this technology, in order to bring our costs down, but also decrease our cycle times because they are experts in design and being able to place our orders closer to the market demands as opposed to having the traditional 4-season cycle order. We're also looking at keeping our existing facility because we do have core products that we would like to keep there, but also we need to have the focus on repairs in the U.S. and keep that close to the existing market. So we aren't completely outsourcing all of our manufacturing. And as I said before, leverage the existing technology and the new technology. This would take place over 2 years, and really this is more around putting savings and becoming more globally competitive on our cost side to avoid what we've had in entrance into Japan where we aren't competitive and we have to reduce costs or offer free shipping, and that's hurting our margins. The next implementation objective is improving adaptability, and this really builds on the first two objectives. We have the technology, we've increased the efficiency, and how do we decrease that design to delivery cycle? This is built on the expertise of our supply management and our outsourcing agreements, really looking at leveraging the internet and using our core ability of our distribution facility to ensure that we can improve our design to delivery cycle time, reduce that so we can be more responsive to the market. Another part with that is if we are able to be more responsive, we need to know what the market is requesting. And this is all around becoming more market-oriented, gathering the voice of the customer on the internet, retail, and catalog side to get that feedback to find out what are the trends, where are we moving, and then we can leverage the quicker cycle times and increase our design focus not only in-house but also in the outsourcing. This will is a much larger initiative, take 3 years, and will involve all parts of the company. The last one is really the global expansion. And as I said, we can't afford to wait to expand globally, but we know we need access to capital. We need to put that cycle in place to really drive this over the long term. So we're talking about in the short term, U.S. East Coast, in a longer term, eventually once we have everything else in place, out to 3 years, and really leveraging our catalog and internet sales to help us drive the location selection. We have a few success metrics around the growth rate, as Mike talked about, some of the increasing design turnover time, increasing retail presence to 50 stores. And really what we're saying is there are obviously some risks and contingencies around here. One of them, access to capital. One of the things there could be going public. But ultimately, what we're saying is you need to focus on that competitive advantage, which we think is long-term around being the most highly adaptable and able to change in this market because the demographics are changing, the trends are changing, and that will truly be LL Bean's competitive advantage into the future. So I'd like to thank you for your time and attention at this point and open it up to any questions that you may have.
Judges, please begin the questioning period.
Thank you very much. We have a product line of 17,000 products. You didn't comment on our product lines. Should we increase our product lines, stay the same, or decrease our product line, and why?
I think that really some of that will be driven by becoming more market-oriented. We know that wide selection is important to a lot of our customers, and through the multi-channel approach, they want to have the variety. So we think that, initially we didn't look at analyzing to determine whether or not we could reduce that to try and save on the efficiency side, but we think that that would be something that you would need to have so that you can have the wide selection to offer. But at the same time, we don't know that you want to necessarily right away increase that wide selection because of there are costs associated with, especially on the supply chain side. But once you have an efficient supply chain and outsourcing arrangement and smaller design to delivery cycles, that might be something that you can consider so that you can improve and actually have a wider selection and also a competitive advantage in that area as well.
Thank you. As was mentioned to you, financing is a problem. And you talked about many things that we needed to do in technology, et cetera. You talked about investors. What is your plan for the financing? Are you planning to go public? What was your recommendation there?
Our plan for the financing is to really increase the profitability, the bottom line profitability of your company, which will really allow you to go out and find financing through a banking sector or through a private investment firm. We are not suggesting that you go public. And the reason for this is that you're a family-run business. You're doing really well. There's no real reason for you to go out and dilute your ownership to increase your capital supply, as well as going public would also change the company image. Your image has been built around your 99-year family history and being a private company. So changing that would have two real effects on both on the financial side and both on the image side of your business.
In your opening comments, you mentioned the fact that we've had, as I quote, a lot of layoffs. But when I hear the terms outsourcing and efficiency together, that to me suggests further layoffs. And how do we sell that to our employees?
With the outsourcing components, obviously we're looking at in terms of some of the manufacturing components being outsourced. But the other piece that we have to take into consideration here is that the employees that are involved in taking these orders and manufacturing some of these orders really know what the orders are that are coming through. They're our frontline personnel, and really they're a great avenue to not really get rid of, but leverage in terms of helping us understand really what our customers are asking us, what's coming into the stores, what's being built and why are we manufacturing those products. So we can leverage some of these frontline employees. We won't have to necessarily lay them off, but find positions within the organization within which to help them. Moreover, in doing some of the outsourcing contracts, we can try and work through some negotiation with the potential vendors that we may be thinking of to see if there's a need for individuals who know the product line for LL Bean and take some of our existing staff and move them to some of these outsourced vendors so that they can leverage the capabilities as well and do it efficiently and in the LL Bean way.
I didn't have a lot of time to talk about on the risks and contingencies, but obviously one of the risks, and really we're taking a more long-term view. In the short term, you could achieve efficiency by continuing to lay people off, and that doesn't solve your long-term problem. The outsourcing will help you to solve the long-term problem, but in the short term, you may still have the requirement, if you cannot move some of the people over or find other areas in the short term, that you will have to lay off additional staff. But really, it's
today, our bread and butter is the catalog operation. It's about 85% of our revenue. You've basically recommended that I focus on everything but catalog, that is opening new retail stores, expanding internationally, and the like. What should I do with the catalog operation? Should I ignore it? Should I invest some money? What exactly should I do, because it is my bread and butter today?
Well, you've already started along the right track with that one, and you've already implemented your plans as far as targeting the catalog. So in the past, you've just had mass marketing of the catalog, and your strategy before you had us go off and try to analyze what else we could further do to help you involved you already choosing segments to how you would send these catalogs out into the marketplace. So we think you're on the right track with that. You just need to continue target marketing the way you have been with the catalog that you started. That's a great way to start. And again, it feeds back into, it's a mature market. You're already there. The best way is to figure out what your segments want. They're changing. So if you identify the segments the way we've suggested and the different needs, and you keep in touch with them, it'll further drive your catalog as well as your internet, as well as your retail. So we're looking for a consistency in how you get in touch with your customers and what you offer. So the catalog offerings are going to change as you get in touch with your customers in a much more personal and up-close way. And we think that'll help the catalog business as well. But we think you already got that and have started on the right track with that one.
Now, the one thing I wanted to add with that is not just to think about what the catalog is, but the role that the actual catalog plays within your organization. And your catalog, in terms of your success, has worked as your pull marketing strategy. And what it's done is through your catalog, you've pulled people to get onto the internet and to move into your retail stores. So you need to leverage that as well. As Andy said, you need to remain consistent in the way that you look at your catalog moving into the future, but also look at these new avenues for further growth in terms of the internet as well as the retail channels.
I'd like to go maybe a little on the softer side of that. Initially, you told us that we have great brands, great quality, great customer service, and everything. Then you go, offering a long, long list of changes. All this being brought back to leadership. Would your recommendation have been the same if Mr. McCormack was a family member?
Yes, it would. We believe that the company is going in the right direction. If the family wants the company to grow, they've got to be able to identify their market segments and be able to drive their profitability, and that drives their revenues because that gives them the capital from the profitability to further grow. So if it was any different, yes, we still believe so, because we're not saying that anything you have right now in terms of the quality or anything is bad. As we said, those are great things, but they're things that other people can copy. Other people have great brands. Other people can offer quality. We want you to stand out. We want you to compete successfully by having a competitive advantage others cannot easily copy. And that's why we're saying, do all the things you're doing already. Those are great things. Don't stop those, but be able to adapt to the changing environment and be able to do so faster than any of your competitors.
One of the things that you mentioned, if I understand you correctly, is one of the core values that you'd like to keep is keep this as a family business. Am I right in understanding that? That's the way I understood it. Do you think, for how long do you think it's technically feasible for a company to stay as a family business and go global?
I think as long as the family wants to stay in the business, it's possible. And it really depends on your business model. And your business model isn't growth for the sake of growing. And even from the beginning, it's been identifying markets you can play in well, and you've identified the environmental markets really in the rugged outdoor market to play in, and you've played in that really, really well. If you want to go outside and really grow into different markets and different product offerings, then at that point in time, I think that the values of the family may have changed, or the goals of the family. So that would be a time when the family would possibly maybe go public.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we have to make a little bit of a differentiation between a typical family business where the family is also running, owning, and operating, where here you've put in place separate ownership, separate from the family, and so then you have the ability to put the correct succession planning, leadership development in place, and not have some of the conflicts you would normally have with a small family business, which then prevents you to grow to a global size. You've already become a global company and put the right things in place to achieve the global expansion. It's really now around, can you attract the capital? And we think by becoming adaptable, improving profit margins, you'll be more attractive to investors, and you can attract the capital. But as the risks and contingency slide pointed out, if one of the risks and you can't attract enough capital, that would be one possibility, as it's been shown. If you were public, you could get access to capital markets easier, but we felt management preference would be to stay as a private company.
You talked about outsourcing. Now, are you recommending outsourcing to local manufacturers, North American, U.S. manufacturers, or are we talking about overseas, and why are you picking one over the other?
We're picking overseas because that's where a lot of the specialty and expertise exist in low-cost apparel manufacturing. We see, as our suggestion in terms of the leader, Li and Feng, 80% of their customer base is the U.S., but all the manufacturing, which is coordinated in Hong Kong and used in the surrounding areas, allows those companies to gain a low-cost advantage so that they can be competitive. And in this market, that low cost is not really an advantage. It's just something that is necessary so that you can be competitive, and you can avoid the situation where you went into Japan and didn't have that low-cost operations and had to look at other things such as free internet delivery around Christmas and other things that really put pressure on your profit margins and are only temporary. You need to look at how do you put a long-term fix in place.
Just so we covered the entire base there, we've also mentioned that with some of the outsourcing, there may be layoffs, and we may be able to get some for partners. Or former employees into other companies. You are doing a lot of things in your current manufacturing capabilities, such as with the boots and the shoes, something we think you should keep close at home. So those are employees that you should, if you do outsource those operations, you will be able to keep at home and still have that in-touch personal feel, because these are the repairs of the boots and everything that you're well known for. but you know these people and their work, and so if you do outsource something like that, those are employees you want to do locally. Everything else, outsourcing overseas seems to be the trend. That's where other customers are doing, and it's giving them an advantage over you right now. So you want to get in on that as well.
Our company has seen no growth in revenues since 1995. And you're projecting going forward that we're going to have 6% per annum growth, mainly by going into new markets, in particular 10% per annum growth on international sales. At the present time, international revenues are only 20% of the total. So I'm wondering, which markets should we be going into? What is it that's going to drive this very strong growth outside that makes up for the sluggish growth domestically?
Well, we suggest moving up within northern North America, Canada, and then move over to Europe, where there are similarities within the lifestyles of within that. Now, just to move forward, we projected that international sales would increase by 10% of total sales over the next 3 years. So the international growth would be closer to about 10% over the next 3 years. And we really do believe by targeting and offering your products to people with similar lifestyles within Europe and within Canada, that it would be that you'd be able to provide a 6% growth rate over the next 3 years.
Yeah, part of the strategy in making sure that we're going after the multi-channel shoppers is this adaptability will enable you to adapt and change your styles in your retail stores more frequently. And as we're aware, in the retail side, a lot of the stores are the same because a lot of the clothing, a lot of the styles are the same. If you can change and update quicker than your competitors, that'll allow you to differentiate on the retail side. And as we talked about in the early years, initial expansion in the U.S. on the retail side, and one of the goals was increasing to the internet side and then using that compounding effect of the multi-channel shopper where they're spending 110% more on your catalog, 50% more or 50% more overall, 70% more in your stores, and then trying to bring those in line, which is where we're trying, as we said earlier, bring up internet and your retail presence and move away from being solely focused on the just the catalog, but you need all three of those so that you can get that true multi-channel shopper effect, and that's where we can see the compound growth and then enable you to start growing. As we saw you in the past, you weren't having any growth over the last 5 years.
One of the difficulties with having 17,000 offerings, largely in apparel, is that you have to have various colors and sizes and the like, and there's always a problem of leftover merchandise. Now, if I become that much more adaptable and that much quicker, I'm going to be carrying many more items, and some of them are not going to sell. And is not my leftover inventory problem going to explode on me? What would I do about it?
Sure. Actually, when we look at the decreasing the design to delivery cycle, what that means is you can actually be placing smaller orders closer to the seasons and actually monitoring the results and then placing additional orders if you see those products taking off. So we actually see that as being able to reduce some of your inventory problems and the leftover sales that you have currently, whereas if you're only placing orders twice a year or putting in manufacturing orders, you have to forecast much further ahead. By decreasing the design to delivery cycle, you can actually forecast much closer to the market, and then using in-store tracking and the monitoring and the catalog on the internet side to decide where and what is selling the best, and that is what you can continue and place more orders on a quicker time frame, and then hopefully actually decrease the inventory and some of the problems that you face, because we do know a wide selection is important and we want to try and balance both.
I would like to thank the team of the Wilfred Laurier University, judges, and the public.